When I got home, I hugged my girlfriend. I will never forget that moment for the rest of my life. And because it was just such a weight off my shoulders. And then later that night, we had a bottle of Dom Perignon.
Oh, nice.
And I told her, I said, I think I'll be able to double the business in the next year. And then I wasn't able to do that. It took me 3 months to double the business because I
Wow.
was just focused. If I hadn't gone through 12, 13 years of pain and suffering, and sucking, and just terribleness, being up to my eyeballs in debt, forgetting what vacation was, not knowing what sleep was, had I not been at that point, I might have not taken such aggressive action.
Welcome to Millionaire Secrets, where we are pulling back the curtain on what it takes to be a seven-figure entrepreneur, giving you the shortcuts and the wisdom from entrepreneurs who are achieving amazing levels of success today, proving that no matter what your story is, no matter what your version of success is, you can take these millionaire secrets and change your reality so you can have your version of success without sacrifice. There is no doubt that we are living through abnormal times right now, but history tells us that this is where the next generation of millionaires will come from. Entrepreneurs who choose to see opportunity and rise above the challenges, creating empires that will make the most impact in response to what's happening in the world. So are you ready to rise up? I am on a mission to show the world and the next generation of entrepreneurs that they can and should become wealthy. My name is Bethan Jepson, and in this series, I will bring you amazing guests to reveal their millionaire business and lifestyle secrets. If you are very much on this journey of pursuing massive success in business, wealth, and life, I am giving away amazing bonuses to those who subscribe to the Millionaire Secrets email list at millionairesecretspodcast.com. So make sure you listen all the way to the end for more information on this. Welcome to episode number 17 of Millionaire Secrets. This is one of my favorite episodes to date. This week's guest is someone that I can massively relate to, and he shared so many valuable lessons and shortcuts. I think that if you are someone who needs focus in your life and business, then Dylan Oeglein, this week's guest, is about to change your life. Dylan is a high school dropout from a small country town in Pennsylvania. He started his first business when he was 14, selling mobile phones. But after 12 years of struggling, making no progress, and working from his freezing basement on multiple businesses and projects, not to mention nearly $1 million in debt, he decided to scrap all of his business projects but one: digital marketing. Turns out focus was the key. 4 short years later, he has built Oeglein Digital into a 7-figure agency, generating over $1 million in sales 3 years running. Dylan is now a leading expert in direct response advertising and business growth. He has now also turned his focus to helping other people start and grow their own hyper-profitable digital agencies. Dylan undoubtedly believes that anybody can start and build their own digital agency that will allow them to have more freedom and live a life with purpose and meaning. Dylan's training programs are designed to take the guesswork out of building an agency and remove all the unknowns that stop so many people from starting their own business. When not working, he enjoys traveling around the world at least 3 months of the year, playing hockey, reading, and spending time with the love of his life, LaCroix. And to be honest, I don't really know what that is, so if anyone out there does, please let me know. He is also fascinated by Stoicism and has an insatiable hunger for knowledge and growth. So Dylan and I would both love to hear your takeaways, so please feel free to share these on social media and tag us both in. You'll find all our social media info in the show notes. But for now, please enjoy this episode. Okay, wonderful. We are live and recording. So welcome, Dylan, to Millionaire Secrets. It's lovely to have you here.
Yes, very lovely to be here. Thank you so much.
No worries. So, as my listeners will know, we always start with some rapid fire to give people the lowdown on how you think.
Got it.
So if you're happy, I'm just going to dive straight in there.
I'm pumped. Let's do it. Hit me.
Wonderful. So, Dylan, where do you live?
Orlando, Florida.
Oh, amazing. So you got best access to all the theme parks.
I don't. Well, especially with COVID, I don't go to them now. But we got really nice weather. It's a big city, and I play hockey, so there's a ton of hockey here. So,
where did you grow up?
On a small little farming town in Pennsylvania called Somerset.
Okay.
And I made sure I had a little country swing there to the end of it. So I think there's more cows than there are people.
Wow. Okay. What was your first job and what did it teach you?
My first job. I think I started, if I remember correctly, I think I started my first business before I got my first job.
Okay.
My first real world job, you could say, like where I was on and I was an employee, was I did managed the cotton candy stand at a local racetrack. My girlfriend at the time, ex-girlfriend now, her dad owned the racetrack, and I managed the cotton candy stand. Before that, the first kind of like thing I was doing to make money was shoveling sidewalks, because I lived in Pennsylvania, so a lot of snow. So
okay,
shovel sidewalks.
That was your first business, was it?
Oh, my first business that I call it was I sold cell phones on eBay. But I was like 10, 9 whenever I would like shovel people's sidewalks and driveways. So
nice.
that was the first thing I did.
Okay. And so was there any kind of lesson? I don't know if you can remember if you're that young, but was there any kind of lesson that came out of that experience for you as a young lad?
I guess you know what? I didn't looking back, I'm like, you know what the lesson would be is that people are willing to overpay if you got good marketing. If you're like this little kid who's like, hey, can I shovel your driveway? People are willing to pay you like what ends up being like $15 an hour back then. I did not realize that was a lesson, but yeah.
Love it. Did you have a role model or a mentor that inspired you to start your first business, or any business, I suppose? And if so, who?
I would say Robert Kiyosaki, the writer of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which is a book that I recommend to absolutely everybody. I like to consider it my financial Bible. I've never met the guy, but it was a massive impact in my life. I read it when I was 13, 14.
Amazing. And I mean, this is not part of the rapid fire, but how does a 13, 14-year-old know that that's a book he should be reading?
I think my brother just, it was my brother's book, and he just had it laying around. And I don't know. I don't know why I picked it up. And what must have been, it just hit me at the right time, and I probably consumed it in like a weekend. I was absolutely obsessed with it, and it changed my life.
Amazing. Oh yeah, I can't wait to come back to that, because
Sure.
Some things there. What time do you get up in the morning, and what's the first thing that you do?
7 a.m. and first thing I do is drink a thing of water, and then I make coffee for my girlfriend and me. So.
Bless you. What's your next big goal?
Next big goal. Right now, I'm working on my education company. Kind of to try and, I hate the term. If people would see me, I'm doing air quotes. I hate the term giving back. That sounds so gross. But I'll try to keep it really short. I've had a ton of mentors, even like Robert Kiyosaki. I'd never met the guy, but I consider him a mentor. I consider myself very blessed and lucky to be where I am, and I wouldn't be here if it weren't for the mentors, teachers, and coaches that I've had along my journey, quote unquote. Another term I hate, journey. So I've always been passionate about wanting to kind of do that for other people, coaching, teaching, something like that. So that's my project right now, is my education company.
Amazing. What's the bravest thing you've ever done?
Wow. This is I apologize for the pause.
That's all right. Leave us in suspense.
I would, we'll probably get, because, we got a bunch of time ahead of us. We'll probably get a little bit more into my story If we don't, we don't. That's fine. But I dropped out of high school because I saw the path I was going down was not going to work, or the chances of success were low. So I took I don't recommend this to anybody. It was absolutely stupid, but I dropped out of high school to get into business, to eventually be years ahead of the curve. I'm 31 now, and I've owned my own business for 17 years. Well, various different businesses, but that was probably that's not brave. That is the best answer I got for you right now.
That is good enough. What's your biggest fear, do you think?
Another pause. Man, I'm messing this up. I was not anticipating these big questions. Death, probably. But I as I've gotten into stoicism, I fear that less and less. I believe that the purpose of life is to take the luck, the blessings, whatever term you want to use, that you are given, push them as far as you possibly can, and then turn around and kind of sprinkle that luck back as best as you can. It can be trying to impact millions or billions. It could be just helping your child, whatever. It could be either direction there. My biggest fear is to take more than what I have been given. I will go with that answer.
Interesting. Is there anything you're finding particularly challenging in life or business right now?
No. Nothing I can think of. Yeah, I am this is the definition of first world problems. I am bored because of COVID. I can't travel. The hockey rink I play at it was closed for like 6 months because of renovations. I'm bored and I don't really have anything to do. I can't go see family. Other than that, yeah, I mean, that's the definition of first world problems. There are certainly people who've gone through tougher things.
Okay. What's been the...
I heard you typing that one down.
I've typed a few things down. What has been the best day in your I know you've had a lengthy business career, but is there any particular day that just stands out to you as that was up there with one of the best days?
Best days of my life, or just best days of business?
Let's go with business. Let's talk about
that. Man, another deep question. I wasn't anticipating this. I owned a commercial real estate property, and I sold it. I lost money on the deal, but the weight that went off of my shoulders from the time, it wasn't even, it was just there. It was didn't really take a lot of time. It was a commercial real estate property, and there was also a laundromat, on that property, and I owned that as well. And I sold it all at once. And again, it didn't take a lot of time, but the weight that went off my shoulders, because then I was able to focus more on my agency, which was my main business. That was probably the best day. And I would add to that when I got home, I hugged my girlfriend. I will never forget that moment for the rest of my life. And because it was just such a weight off my shoulders. And then later that night, we had a bottle of Dom Perignon.
Oh, nice.
And I told her, I said, I think I'll be able to double the business in the next year. And then I wasn't able to do that. It took me 3 months to double the business because I was just focused. So that is my answer.
I love it. And we're certainly going to be talking more about that. Okay. On the opposite end of the spectrum then, what's been one of the worst days in your business career?
Worst days in my business career. And this is going to be like 2015, 2016, somewhere around there. I was nearly $1 million in debt. One of the projects I was working on was a residential property I was trying to flip. It was a single family home, bought it real cheap, had all kinds of problems, and I was fixing it up. And I had maxed out every credit card, did every credit extension you could possibly do to get as much money to go towards the property to fix it up. And I had no idea how I was going to finish the project because I didn't have enough money to finish it. I somehow ended up finding that money, and I don't even know where. I don't even know how I finished the project, but I needed to get a few permits approved. I don't know in the UK. I presume in the UK you have some kind of permitting process that's similar to the States. And long story short, the local government was like, "Oh yeah, do this to the property, and then we'll get you your permits." And essentially, they came out and they said, "No, you're going to basically have to take everything you've done apart. We have to see this. We have to go to the bare bones of the property." I'm trying to simplify this story as much as I can for time. But I was like, if I do that, I'm done. Like if that ends up being the case, I'm done. There's no way I'm going to be able to make it. There's no way I'm going to be able to sell this property. So there's no way I'm going to be able to pay off the credit card debt. I am done. And I got off the phone with the guy and I cried in the car. And then I called another guy at the office, and he was like, "Oh no, that's not correct. They misinformed you. That's only for new construction. We'll go out and we'll give you the permit." And again, I'm simplifying the story for time, but that was the low moment because I didn't think I would be able to get out of the hole.
Wow. Well, thank God you called for a second opinion,
It was because I didn't have any option. It was, yeah. I did failure just wasn't an option in the moment. So.
And this is one that I've kind of tailored for you based on.
Oh boy. I'm nervous now.
Research. Well, it's very tame. Because a lot of, your story, you talk about the importance of focus and how, and how that, changed things for you and, in your story. So could you summarize it into like a top tip to help entrepreneurs get focused?
I'll summarize it the same way the lesson was given to me, which we'll probably get into the actual story. But I had a mentor of mine who called me up at the peak of my lack of focus, getting nowhere, up to my eyeballs in debt, bad situation. And the advice he gave to me was to stop trying to build an airline and instead drill for oil. And this was the lesson specifically when it came to business. And what he meant by that, and he dove into it, was I was trying to do all these random little projects to make a little bit of money. And even if I was the best in the world at them, I probably wouldn't. I might make a little bit of money. I'm not going to make a lot of money. And, the example he uses with the airline and the oil wells is like, airlines are just notoriously difficult businesses to make money in. Like the best business people in the world can go into that industry and they're probably not going to make money. But an average business person can get into the oil industry and probably make good money. So, he was like, stop focusing on all these stupid little projects that probably aren't going to make money and focus on the single project where if you end up just being okay or just average at it, you still end up meeting your financial goals.
Yeah, that's such a juicy little lesson.
So, yeah.
Okay.
So personally, I scrapped everything and just focused on one single thing.
Yes. Okay. And the final question of the rapid fire. So kind of my ethos and why I do things the way I do and why I build my business the way I build it is because I'm on this like complete unapologetic pathway for what I call success without sacrifice. So I would love to know, Dylan, what is your version of success without sacrifice?
Success I would define as just simply being happy. So if you To me, it's more about lifestyle than necessarily money. Most people, when they're thinking of success, all they think about is money. But if you have all the money in the world, but you're overweight and overworked and you have terrible relationships, you don't know what sleep is, all of that, that's not success, is it? Even if you have a bunch of money. On the flip side of that, if you're really healthy and you're got deeply spiritual and doing all kinds of meditation and eating healthy and you have great relationships, but you're broke, that's not success either. So it's kind of having this balanced lifestyle. For me, something that's very important is being able to work when I want, on what I want, and where I want. So I built my life that way. And pre-COVID, I could do all those things. I could be where I want, but now it's a little bit different, and that's okay. But I think that would be my answer.
I love it. Great answer. Okay. So, I mean, there's quite a few things that I'd like to revisit, but yeah, I guess
I gotta be honest, I'm like sweating after that, like rapid fire. That got intense. I was not expecting that.
Oh yeah, I like to like set the context from the get-go that this is going to be because there's lots of places you can go to get your generic tips and tricks on building success, but what you find is it's how you apply it to you, where you've come from, the way you think, and it's a very individual experience. So that's why I kind of it's a
very good way of thinking of it.
Yeah,
I like that.
That's exactly what I'm here for. So, okay. I guess the first place I want to start is, I guess, at the beginning. So you've clearly got entrepreneur in your blood because you were 13 when you picked up Rich Dad Poor Dad. I think I was 23 or 24 when I picked up Rich Dad Poor Dad. So would you say, like, because I can reflect on that book and be like, it's no wonder he then chose to drop out of school, because that book is all about how conventional education isn't useful.
Yeah, very much so.
Did it actually feed into your decision to drop out of school then, the kind of the things you were reading? And
so there was a lot. It was almost serendipitous. So I picked up that book, which, obviously talks about the education system and whatnot. At the same time, that girl I was dating, my ex-girlfriend, her dad was like the vice president of one of the biggest businesses in the area. And they got along with him great. So I kind of had like this mentorship kind of thing with him. I mean, he was a great guy and was giving me kind of lessons and whatnot. And so there was that. Picked up that book, and these were all like completely separate things. Picked up the book. There was him. There was at the same time, my goal, which I think I mentioned this in the rapid fire, like my vision of where I was going was I was playing hockey and I wasn't that good. So I knew pro wasn't going to happen by all means, but it was like, if I just keep killing this and I just keep busting my ass and going as hard as I can on this, maybe I can get a scholarship to go to college. Not at some high-end school, but like that was the only way. That was the only way I was going to go to college. Like my parents paying for it just wasn't in the cards. So that was the goal. And again, so at this time, I'm starting to think like, what am I going to go to college for? And business just kind of sparked my interest. I had my mentor. I was reading this book. I'm thinking about business, going to get maybe an MBA someday, master's in business administration. I don't know if you have that in the UK.
Yes, I do.
So there's all that. And I remember kind of where I made the decision of I need to go in a different direction was I was at this varsity matchup. I was too young to be on the varsity team, but I went to a game once, and there was this prep school playing. I forget what teams were playing, but I'm watching them, and these guys were just so much better than me, like light years ahead of me. And even some of them getting a scholarship wasn't going to happen. And I realized that like all of these players who were way better than me, the commonality was either one, they had a lot of money, they came from money, so they could go to all these camps and play for better teams and whatnot, or two, more likely, they started sooner. They started when they were like 4 or 5, where I started when I was like 10 or 11, which is when you're that age, that is a colossal. It's orders of magnitude bigger.
Mm.
And I had this realization, like, what if I were to get into business now? Didn't make the decision to drop out of high school yet, but what if I were to get into business now? In 10 years, I'll be these guys. I'll be the one who's way ahead of the curve. When everybody else is getting out of college, when they're reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad when they're 23, I'll be the one who's like, I read that book 10 years ago. I have 10 years of experience. I knew it was going to be painful. I knew it wasn't going to be easy, but I was like, I can be ahead of the game. So I now don't remember what your question was, but it was all those things.
It was about like the decision, how you came to the decision that.
It was all of those things at once, and it was just like, so I made a decision to quit hockey, start my first business. Then I convinced my parents to let me do homeschool. I had to pay for it and everything. I had to buy all the books. And I was like, oh, yeah. I mean, then I can work on my business and do school. And they're like, okay. And they let me. And then I just never opened any of the books. I don't even think I ever opened the box that the books came in. And eventually I was like, listen, guys, like, I'm going to flunk out because I haven't taken a single test. Just let me quit. And they're like, okay. So they let me quit.
Wow.
That was it.
Yeah, I guess I bet they're happy with what happened now. They can look back.
It turned out all right. It took a long time to get here, but it turned out okay in the end.
Was there ever a point when they got really worried about you?
I don't think I have that kind of relationship with them. Okay. But yeah, I don't think. I mean, I'm sure to a certain degree. If you were to ask them, they probably would say yes. But I don't have that perspective.
Okay, yeah, and because it kind of sounds like from a very young age, you just knew your own mind, and like you had this trust in yourself that I think is very mature. Because I can reflect back on my own experiences and not feel anything like what you're describing. Is that, I don't know, does that resonate? Like, do you feel like you did know your own mind? And
it's almost egotistical to say yes. But I think the answer is certainly yes. I always had people saying I was much more mature for my age than what my age was. And that just simply comes from my upbringing. My parents and people around me, it wasn't, they weren't babying me. It was, you go figure it out on your own. And so just kind of a roughness to that. But in the end, if it turns out okay, it is much for the better. So, yeah.
Okay. And so, so at what point then, because you've talked about obviously getting started, you made the decision that you wanted to focus on business rather than school. And then in the rapid fire, you were mentioning, when you were $1 million in debt, and you had all these multiple projects you're working on. So how did it get from I'm leaving school to focus on business to I'm $1 million in debt and I've got a bazillion things going on? Talk to us about that little journey in the middle.
That little journey is like 12 years.
Okay, a little then.
And yeah, but it what it was is it was a lot of, I don't want to say I blame it. I consider it to be desperation. I was so desperate to get something to work that, and this is now that I've done some mentoring and coaching and teaching myself, I look back and I'm like, oh, I wasn't the only one. Like, a lot of people make that mistake, especially if like they lose a job or they decide to go down their own route, and you're so desperate to just get that little bit of income to kind of keep you afloat. So then you're like, you start doing a project that could only ever make a couple $100 a month, but you're like, that couple $100 a month matters. But you lose sight of the bigger goal because you're blinded. I like to say that, the solution was like, I know people can't see me, but it was right in front of my face. Like it was right there, but you're so blinded that you don't have that, thinking outside the box, 30,000 foot view to see like, duh, you idiot, this solution is right in front of you. So yeah, that journey was just a lot of trying everything I could possibly think of, every idea that came my way, because work ethic wasn't a problem. So I was like, of course I can do it, because like I have no problem working 100 hours a week. I don't need sleep. And because of that, you're bouncing around, you never actually get anywhere. And there's the lack of focus is huge, but then you also never get good at anything because you're only giving 10 hours a week to something. Everybody only has so much attention points that they can give out during a day. There's only so much focus you can put on something. And eventually you just get sloppy if you're doing so many different things. So don't do that. Instead, focus on one project that's likely to be an oil well where you can end up just okay at it and still meet your financial goal. And then if you put your focus towards it, you probably ended up with success. And then, as it turns out, if you just focus on one thing, you get better and better and better. There you go. It'll be 12 to 13 years bouncing around like an idiot, wasting a big chunk of my life to learn that lesson.
And was it worth it? Like, was those 12 years, like, I guess the question I'm asking is, would you do anything differently if you could do it again?
So I study Stoicism. I hate using the word practice Stoicism because that makes me sound like I'm really educated in it, and I'm not. But I study Stoicism, so that and I always try to show gratitude towards things. So I look back and I'm like, I'm thankful that I went through that, and there's no reason to sit and ponder like, would you do something different? It's a great question. Don't get me wrong, but if I'm sitting there kind of regretting it, that's not going to help me going forward. So do I regret it? Do I wish I had done something different? Absolutely not, because there's no way to know would I be where I am today had I not gone through that.
Yeah, and that's it's an interesting concept, isn't it? Would it have changed the reality? Obviously
absolutely.
But yeah, it's very philosophical, like philosophical. I don't even know if that's a word.
Philosophical, yeah.
Philosophical. Thank you. Okay, amazing. I was going to ask you another question now, but I forgot what it was.
I would like to add one thing to that is
different.
So like the philosophical. No, I'll go in a different direction here. When I had that conversation with that mentor and basically just like literally that night when I had that conversation, I went down in my basement and I just deleted stuff that wasn't making at least some money, and just things that were making money, I just shelved them and just focused on the one business. That was pretty aggressive action. That was like cold turkey. I'm quitting all this stuff. If I hadn't gone through 12, 13 years of pain and suffering, sucking, just terribleness, being up to my eyeballs in debt, forgetting what vacation was, not knowing what sleep was, had I not been at that point, I might have not taken such aggressive action. And then it wasn't just scrapping all these projects. Like, so I focused just on agency. Then I was like, okay, I naturally was like, well, I need a website and I need this and I need a logo and I need a business card and I need to have a nice phone system and blah, blah, blah. But because I had gone through so much pain, I was like, no, I'm not. I just need to focus on getting clients and then delivering results to the clients. So I didn't build a website. I didn't get a logo, didn't do any of that stuff, which was completely that wasn't me. That wasn't how I did things. But it wouldn't have taken such aggressive, relentless, ruthless action had it not been for the pain.
Yeah. And I think that's like a a really almost like a mic drop kind of lesson there, is that you don't want to pretend like the suffering hasn't happened, or you don't want to just put to bed those times in your life where you've not been where you want to get to, because feeling that pain is the only thing that then allows you to figure out how to get to the opposite
100%. Absolutely. You gotta being comfortable is the worst thing that can ever happen to somebody. And being uncomfortable is a blessing. And I was extremely uncomfortable with where I was. And that's why, if somebody's not taking action, they're not taking the steps to build their business or whatnot. This can go outside of business. This can be somebody who's trying to get in shape, quit smoking, eat healthier, whatever, get better with their relationship. Like 99% of the time, it comes down to one single thing. Are you comfortable where you are at, or are you ready to make a change? Because if you're not making the change, you're probably comfortable enough where you are.
Yeah.
But if you are uncomfortable, you will do whatever it takes.
Yeah, 100%. Love it. So at that moment where you described you sat in your car in tears with the realization that you are $1 million in debt. And
close to. Well, I had not hit it yet.
Close to $100 million. $100 million. Oh my God.
Oh, no, I would have been dead.
1 million. Let's stay reasonable.
Yes. Let's not make it extreme.
How do you? Because I've heard now stories where people have, it seems quite common that people have been £30,000 or dollars in debt, 60,000, 100,000, and so on and so forth. And clearly, like, it seems like there's a ceiling for everybody. Some people, they can't bear to be like 5,000 in debt, or 2,000, or even 500. But I don't know, what was the million your ceiling, do you think, that then was like, did it all change from there, or did you keep going a bit more before you then?
I would have kept going.
You would have kept going.
There wasn't a ceiling. I would have. I think probably where I was, like, nobody would have given me any more money. like I had close to 200,000 in credit card debt, and I have, knock on wood, I've never missed a payment. I have no idea how I kept balance transfer from here to here to make it work. I don't know how I did it, but somehow was able to figure it out. But no, I would have kept going. I would have kept going, because there wasn't I didn't have an option. I had to keep going. Failure wasn't an option.
So would you consider that good debt then, if you were able to repay every month? Is there such a thing as good debt and bad debt? What's your take on that?
Well, Robert Kiyosaki would certainly say yes, there is. And yes, like, some of that money was, I wasn't going, I wasn't using that money to go buy new shoes or something, or you buy a Rolex or get a new PlayStation or something like that. It was making just borrowing money to try to, but to spend it on business or buy ads or whatever. So, and some of that was like a mortgage on that, like that commercial property. Some of that was included there.
Okay.
But I was obviously personally liable for it. But so yeah, there's certainly there's certainly good debt and bad debt. And the vast majority of that would be considered good debt. But yeah, I think it was the bouncing around from idea to idea that just exacerbated that issue and made it much, much worse.
Okay. So how did you know that the digital agency was the right thing to focus on?
So So the lesson I got was focus on basically high margin businesses, not low margin businesses.
Okay.
And on top of that, businesses where you can just be okay at it or just be good or average. You don't have to be the best in the world to hit your financial goal, which for me was six figures. Like I just wanted to hit six figures. I felt like that would solve all my problems. And I just looked at it, and there were kind of training programs that I had gone through, and I knew the industry a little bit, to where I looked at it and I was like, if I focus on this, I get a few more clients, I get the clients' results, it can scale up pretty quickly. And the other things I was working on were like, one of them was Kindle eBooks. I took this, to give a little bit of context here, I took this training program where the guy taught you how to basically, you hired freelance writers to write these short ebooks, like 2,000 words or something like that. You pay them like $50, you get a cover designed, you slap it all together, you upload it to Kindle, and you sell it for like $1 or $2. And then you encourage people to give you reviews. It was pretty much it. And then you target certain keywords depending on, what's going on in the market, to try to get niche down books. And he was making like $5,000 a month with that. Well, it turns out he was like the best in the world at it. and I was just average at it. So I think the most I ever made was like a couple $100 a month. And this is worth commenting, for a period of time, I was undoubtedly the world's biggest Amish romance story publisher on Kindle. The world's biggest, right here. The world's biggest publishing company for Amish romance novels on Kindle. Because that was what you did, was you targeted certain, like you would put out like 20 books in various different categories, different keywords, etc. And like whichever ones seemed to stick, you then produced more of them, and like series of books. And that's what I did. I don't even remember what your question was. I did this. Damn it. I did it again. But now you know about the Kindle romance novel publishing company.
Oh my God. Oh God, you're so funny to interview.
Thanks. Now you're laughing at me. Great. I hope this video goes live so everybody can see it. She's just sitting here laughing at me the whole time.
Oh, it's yeah, you're making my day, if it's any consolation.
Well, that's good. That's good.
My original question was, why did you decide the digital agency was the best bet?
Well, I think I did answer that. I think I gave, it was a high margin business, and I saw that it was scalable. And if I ended up just being okay at it, I could probably hit six figures.
Amazing. Love it. And how long did it take you, out of curiosity, to hit six figures after you focused?
It's a good question. So six figures is $1,923 a week. And I used to keep a spreadsheet that I tracked my rolling 23-week average revenue. 23 because I'm obsessed with 23, and it's almost 6 months. And the reason I did that was, if say I got a check one week for $3,000 for a project or something, I didn't want to trick myself and be like, hey, I hit six figures, and then like the next 5 weeks I generate nothing. So it was to stop myself from tricking myself. So I kept a rolling average. So it was October, November of 2016 that I scrapped everything and just focused on the agency. And I believe it was March or February that I hit the six-figure level.
Amazing.
And then that would have been 2017. 2018 is when I hit seven figures.
Amazing. And at what point, because this is a common problem that I've personally had it in my own businesses, and I know my clients have as well, that moment where you're on your own and you recognize you're very busy, but it's like, right, do I now allocate the time into finding the person, training a person, and how do I make the decision of what to outsource first so that I can still keep momentum going? I'm trying to not make the wrong decision because I don't want my momentum to stop, but it's too big for just me now.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice for that moment where you realize it's, from my singular being, I now need at least one person, and how to kind of start making that shift?
Sure. So I don't particularly have any advice on like when that moment happens, because I think you just know, or you just get a feeling.
Yeah.
So, but I would recommend, I kind of have a process that I'm going to give two pieces of advice here. So the first is always try to apply the 80-20 method to pretty much everything in your life, which for those of you who don't know, the 80-20 method is essentially, if you look at like any area of your life, it could be business, personal, relationships, everything, like you will find a common theme where 20% of your efforts get 80% of the results. And 80% of your results give you 80% of your actions, your efforts get you 20% of your results. Like this is just so common. So you often want to go through what you're doing throughout your day and see, like, is this the 20%, or is this the 80%? Am I actually getting any revenue, any business from what I'm doing, or is what I'm doing just busy work? So just constantly being aware of that, constantly looking for it is I think the first step. From there, what I do is I apply, what is the order? It's eliminate, automate, or delegate. So look at the task, whatever it is, and apply that 80-20 to it, and see, is this certain task just busy work? Adding a little bit more to that, can I batch it to make it more efficient? So batching is simply, a good analogy is like your laundry, right? You don't do your laundry every time you have a pair of socks that you just changed, right? Or you don't do your laundry 2 times a day. You do laundry like once a week. You don't pay bills every single day or every single time a new bill comes in. You pay bills once a week or once a month. So, but for some reason with business, people don't view it that way. Like they check their email every minute, and they have notifications on their phone. Like every time an email is coming in, they got to respond to it right away. Like, no, like do that once a day. And you'll find by batching, by doing tasks, grouping them together, you cut a lot of waste and you cut the time. So eliminate tasks, and or see if you can apply batching to them. Automate is the step of automating is looking at the task or whatever it is and seeing, is there an app or a software or something that will automate this task? A very common one is scheduling. It's almost 2021, people. Like, why do you not have a Calendly account? I actually think, if I recall, you don't have one, do you?
No, I do.
You do? You didn't send me the link, I don't think, to schedule this.
I don't know. Link.
I sent you. That's how it worked. Yes. But no, the podcasts are a great example. It's 2020, it's almost 2021, and I will get people who are like, here's 5 times that I'm available. And I'm like, why are we doing this? Why aren't you just sending me an email with a link to your Calendly, or schedule once? There's all kinds of apps. Acuity scheduling, I think, is another.
Yeah.
You need to look at it and just Google, is there an app or something to automate this task? And then the third step is delegate, which is hiring a virtual assistant or a team member or something to do the task. So
nice. I mean, that was super detailed. So thank you so much, because
it's so important. Because eventually, everybody, if you're growing your business, you're gonna hit your limit. You only have so much time, and by having a step-by-step process, it eliminates. You're no longer being reactive; you're being proactive. So, okay, I have reached my limit. There is this task. Run it through the process. Step 1: can I eliminate this? Okay, I can't. Step 2: is there a software or an app to automate this? Okay, I can't. Then step 3: bring on a team member or add it to a team member's list of things to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting because, like, I speak to a lot of people that start their business with the view that they want more like freedom and they want to have like they want to prioritize their lifestyle, but then they end up kind of the opposite happening because they're so resistant to grow a proper business because for whatever reason they've associated that as not the direction they want to go in. So as a result, they take everything on themselves, have zero freedom because they have to be sat at the computer for 12 hours a day. And and at a certain point they kind of forget the reason they did it in the first place. I'd love to know actually, because you've talked about like, you zoomed in on the digital marketing agency with the view that, you wanted to see if you could get to 6 figures, and that's obviously a financial goal. And then, you described the journey to 7 figures. At what point did you start going, it's not really about the money anymore. I want to build my business so that I have more freedom. Do you remember at what point it stopped becoming about the money?
I mean, it's always technically about the money, but no, I had a 4-hour work week. I read that. If you read, you read 4-Hour Work Week like that.
Yeah,
that's another book everybody's going to read. Yeah. So you have to read that. So I knew going into it, like from day one, like that's what I was trying to build, was a business where I had freedom. So even whenever I was still struggling, I knew that was the direction that I wanted to get to. So that like the foundation of the business was in place from day one.
Okay. Yeah. So I guess that was probably then one of the reasons why, well, I guess it's one of the reasons why you probably did a million different things because, I guess, I mean, I've been on the other end of the sales pitch myself, it's with the view of this is the business that you can run online. It can all be automated and A, B, and C. And then you're like, great, I'll have 7 of them.
My perspective, again, the solution was right in front of my face. Yeah. I looked at these projects or whatever, and like the Kindle, we'll talk about that. I was like, I know if I become like I get really good at this, I'll be able to hit six figures. But I just couldn't put the time, the focus, the effort, etc. into it because I was so desperate to get all these other things going so that I could get 6 figures in my mind, because you're blinded by desperation. It was if I get all of these things going, then I'll be able to put the time and effort into the one thing. I don't even know if it was Kindle in my mind at the time, but it was like, if I get all of these things to work, then I'll have 6 figures. Then I can kind of take a breather and evaluate which is the best one to take to that next level and just focus on that. Whereas what I should have just been doing, it was just focusing on the one thing from the beginning.
Yeah, so. It's interesting. I always think the quest for time freedom is really, it's quite a funny thing for an entrepreneur because, we'll end up working. You've said it before, you've got a really strong work ethic, clearly, because, your motivation is very strong for where you're heading. And it's like, right, well, if I need to work 80 hours a week to then work 4 hours a week, I'm going to do it.
Yeah. And what you find is you get addicted to it. And you have to be self-aware and be like, and that's where the whole that's why the first step that I mentioned is eliminate, view it through the context of, is what I'm doing just busy work? And a lot of times I talk to people and maybe they don't have, maybe they're only doing 6 figures, or maybe they're doing 60, 70,000 a year, and that's all their goal is. And that's fine. And they're like, I'm working 80 hours a week. And then you talk to them a little bit and it's like, you're like wasting 90% of your time. Why are you doing that? You could just be doing 10% of the work and then actually have a life. And that's very, very common.
And at what point did you realize like travel was going to be a big part of, the way you lived your life? Because that's pretty much all your Instagram is travel.
Well, now they're getting a little old because I haven't been out of the country in over a year. So I never really I think it was kind of in contrast to my parents and my upbringing. I was from a small town. I don't think I had went further than Ohio west up until I was like 25. Never went out of the country until went to Europe for the first time when I was like 24 or something like that. So it was that small town feel. I wanted to get out into the world and travel, but I didn't have the resources until I was probably like 20, 25 to actually seriously get into traveling until like 2017. That was when I first was like, wow, I can actually go and maybe take a week off, or not even take a week off. I could actually go, and for me, it's not about actually going to a resort and taking a whole week off. It's going and exploring and still taking care of the business. But it wasn't really until 2017 that I really had the resources to do that.
Yeah, it's certainly a big motivation of mine. So that's why I'm always intrigued.
How old are you? I don't think we talked about this yet.
I'm 28.
I'm flipping it around. Rapid fire for you.
No one's ever asked me a single question yet on these podcasts. So
really? Where are you from?
Oh God. So I'm from Manchester in the UK. So
if you could travel anywhere, where would it be?
Oh, the Caribbean. That's one place that I've not yet done. Which
really?
Yeah.
Why? Yeah, let's go with that.
I don't know. I just feel like it's so far removed from where I am and how I live my life, and I think it would. I don't know. I just feel like the Caribbean. It just represents something completely different to what I would expect.
Where all have you been?
I've. I'm probably going to cut this down.
You did not expect this, did you? You can't. I will leave Apple Podcast comments and be like, "Hey, this is Dylan. You recently did an interview with me, and I think you cut a part out. Yeah, you can't cut this out. This is good stuff. Yep, flipping it around. This will be my last question. Where all have you been?
So I've done a lot in Asia, Australia, New Zealand. Been to America a few times. I've obviously Europe. I've been a lot of places. I've still not been to everywhere in Europe. A lot of Eastern Europe I've not been to. But yeah, I've never been to South America, never been to Central America. I've been to Africa once.
So you're well-traveled.
I'm fairly well-traveled for a 28-year-old, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, as I say, it's a big motivation for me as well.
That's the end of my rapid fire session.
I'm glad that's over.
Makes you nervous, doesn't it? Are you sweating over there?
I am sweating.
Oh, how the tables have turned.
Oh, funny. I mean, yeah, actually, it's funny because I feel like I didn't particularly want to end there, but I feel like I think we've gone on quite an adventure together, and I suppose actually the last thing that I was intrigued about, which I think would be super valuable actually to get your opinion on, is that I noticed in is it your media sheet or one of your sheets that you sent over?
I didn't make that, but
okay. Well,
I know what you're talking about, but
so maybe I'll be putting you on the spot here. But in the interview topics, it talks about building things to break, how to be lean, mean, and scrappy when starting a business, and why it will bring success. And I just wanted to, just understand a bit more about what that means, because I think there's such a perfectionist tendency, and I have to do things perfectly, or I have to I guess it feeds that fear of failure. But what do you mean, or what do you think it means when you talk about that?
So, yeah, absolutely. So, pre-show, we were talking about your podcast, about when you did your first episode.
Yeah.
And this is kind of a good example. You don't want to spend 6 months, a year, longer building that first podcast episode or that first YouTube video or your product or service. I mean, this could go in so many different directions, so many different businesses, so many different industries, and so many different niches. Yeah. You don't want to spend 6 months, a year, years building it perfectly, because I hate to tell you, but the first version is going to suck. It's going to be terrible. Your first sales call, if you're doing sales calls for you start a digital agency, probably going to bomb it. It's going to be bad. Your first YouTube video, it's going to be terrible. It's going to suck. Your first podcast is not going to be good. And we live in such a visual world where people are on Instagram or they're on YouTube, and you're viewing somebody's YouTube videos, and you want to start a YouTube channel, and you're like, wow, look at those, you're following somebody, like, look at that production. It's so good. I need to copy that. I need to do something. I need that level of quality. And what, for some reason, we blindly forget that's probably like the 1,000th episode or the 50th podcast. And the only way to get to your 50th iteration, you're constantly improving, is to do your first one. And the first one is always the hardest. And the first one is always going to be the worst. So just get out and put it out there. And don't worry about perfection. Don't worry about getting it right. Put something out into the marketplace and get feedback from the marketplace. Depending on your product, depending on your service, hack or a cheat that I like to recommend to people is to sell before you build.
Yeah.
So you have a training program. Don't spend 6 months building the training program out and then try to sell it only to find out that nobody needs it. If you're starting a training program on how to build a podcast, or in my case, how to start and grow a digital agency, don't spend a year building out the program and then try to sell it just to figure out that nobody actually wants it. Like, actually prove that there is product market fit by going out into the marketplace and actually getting somebody to give you money. And let me add, this doesn't apply to every industry and every niche. This wouldn't work with a podcast. But if you have a product or service, actually go out into the marketplace and get somebody to give you money. Don't ask them, hey, would you use this product or service? Because people are nice and they'll lie to you. And they'll say, oh, yeah. But if somebody's actually willing to give you a credit card or hand you money, okay, that's proof. And then what happens is, let's use that training program example. So you go out and you sell it to somebody, you get them to give you money. Well, if you end up not building the product or service, you can just refund them the money. It's okay.
Yeah.
But because you actually somebody gave you money and you tell them like, hey, I'm going to deliver the product or service by such and such date, it forces you to build the minimal viable version. Minimal viable product, minimal viable service. And build it to break, build it to be the minimal version of the product or service. Don't spend 2 years building it only to find out that nobody wants it.
Yeah. Oh, such a good piece of advice there. Wonderful. Okay. So final question then. You'll be very relieved to hear. So, the podcast is called Millionaire Secrets. I'm really trying to figure out, what how successful people think, what they do more of, what they do less of. So with that in mind, Dylan Ogline, what is your millionaire secret?
I think we talked about it. Would be if I had to, one single thing would be focus. Focus your efforts. Try to focus your efforts on one single thing, and the more specific you can get, the better. If the most specific you can get is I'm just going to focus on one business, okay, but challenge your notion of that's as specific as I can get, and say, can I focus on just one specific product or service within that business? Try to get as focused as possible, and then scale up from there. There you go. That's my secret.
And can I ask a follow-up question?
Absolutely not. Go ahead. I don't usually ask a follow-up question to Millionaire Secret, but I kind of feel like it's an important one. So, in your case, for example, you built your digital agency and now you're building your training business. So
does that mean you still have the digital agency, or have you now fully put that to bed, or how does it work when you're kind of evolving as a business owner and like you said, your passion's changed, or you've got a new goal or something? Like, what happens?
That's a great question, because it kind of might sound like I'm not taking my own advice. I have two businesses. What's going on here? So in my particular case, because I wanted to build that kind of 4-hour work week life. I did an article recently, and the interview said laptop. Something along the lines of he lives the laptop lifestyle, and that's just kind of stuck with my brand, I guess. I hate that term. Another term I hate. So, but when growing the business, because I wanted to have lifestyle was very important. It eventually got to the point where I still have the agency. I still run it now. This is going to be our best year ever. And if it requires 2 to 3 hours of my time a week, that's probably putting it pretty high. I could probably get away with 1 hour or less a week.
Wow.
And I'm very blessed. I'm very lucky for that. That is on purpose. That is by design. I wanted it to be there. And so once I hit I was addicted to the growth. Once I hit 6 figures, it was like, 200,000. Then, now I want to hit 500,000. And then I was like, 7 figures. So once I got there, I kind of took a step back and was like, okay, you have the lifestyle you want. You're just going to keep wanting to grow bigger, and your quality of life isn't increasing dramatically anymore. And I had this nagging desire, like I mentioned, to give back. Again, I hate that term, giving back, but to do some kind of coaching and mentoring, teaching. And I had along the journey, again, another term I hate to use, along the journey, I had done some mentoring and wasn't getting paid for it or anything. And I just absolutely loved it. It was much more, I don't want to say much more enjoyable than the agency, but it was much more fulfilling than the agency work. So, I hit 7 figures, was like, okay, I got an incredible team in place. I'm only going to be addicted to the growth going forward. My lifestyle isn't dramatically increasing anymore. I have all this time. Okay, what can I do now? So that was about 2 years ago, give or take, 1.5, 2 years ago, and kind of just switched my focus. And now that's where 95% of my time and effort goes to.
Okay, so it's kind of like, so do one thing, build it to the level where you can pretty much remove yourself apart from potentially a couple of hours a week, then do the second thing. Is that an accurate summary?
Well, that's what I did. Yes. Okay. Would I give that advice to somebody else? Depends on what your desire is. A very good friend of mine has a successful business, and he doesn't want to kind of go down my route that I've gone down. He pretty much just wants to make a bunch of money and then retire and just chill out, I guess. And so my advice to him is to continue to grow the company, keep your operations slim and elegant as you possibly can, and then try to sell it. That's probably the route that he would go down. So, again, I wouldn't necessarily give that advice to anybody, because that is just what fit my particular situation.
Amazing. And where can people come and follow you to learn more from you and just follow you on your journey that you love to describe as?
No, I don't love it. I need to come up with a better word there. But no, my website's DylanOgline.com, and then you can follow me on the Instagram and the Facebooks, and I think that's pretty much it. And like the LinkedIn's, but I'm never on there. But yeah, DylanOgline.com.
Amazing. Cool. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Dylan. Honestly, this has been as valuable as it's been hilarious.
Thank you very much for having me. It was great.
No worries. Thanks for listening to this episode. This is the one secret that I really want you to share. If you know someone who you know needs to hear this message of inspiration, please share this episode with them. And if you enjoyed what you heard today, I would be super grateful if you could leave me a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening on. Also, those who subscribe to the Millionaire Secret podcast email list, you will immediately receive the Millionaire Secret Success Checklist, 12 easy to implement daily practices which guarantee success in business, approved by millionaires for future millionaires. Thanks again for listening to Millionaire Secrets, and don't forget, knowledge is only power when you take action on it. I don't want the secrets in this podcast to stay secret for long, so go away, implement the advice given in this podcast, and let me know your results.